Peace, family. You're tuning in to the Pro Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio. I am your host, Onitaset Kumat, author of the Book of Power. And if you didn't know, I also, let's say, digitized the Carlos A. Cook's Reader. So the Carlos A. Cook's Reader is this right here. It's this nice reader, Carlos A. Cook's Reader, edited by Onitaset Kumat. It includes several books, and guess what? It's available to you free of charge. Yes, this is one of those This is one of those readings I would like you to engage. I would say annually, and it's just one of those missing pieces of our story from who I would say is Marcus Garvey's protege. So he's definitely one of the people to look at for the 20th century. And in this century, or whatever century you're listening to this in, we want to advance and build upon that. So I have a few of his works in my latest book, but I'm also giving you his book free of charge. So definitely hit me up on the Discord if you want a copy of the Carlos A. Cook's Reader. Otherwise, here's what I'm going to do today for you. I'm going to read, I just pretty much chose a passage at random. This is Strange, Isn't It? I'm going to read Strange, Isn't It? And then I'm going to give you a little bit of commentary, insight on it afterward. But here, let me try give you guys a good rendition. So this is on page 33 of the PDF, but page 35 of the first book. So let's go. Strange, isn't it? That every race on earth can see beauty in their own women, except you know who. That all other women, whether they be Malay, Chinese, Caucasian, or Hindu, accept their hair and color as a natural gift, except, can you guess who? That everybody from the Arab to the Chinese believe in their own God and see good in the image and likeness of their race. That's right. But with them, you know I don't like using this word. God looks like somebody else. And why is it that they are always taking the white man to court legally to compel whites to accept them as neighbors? Could it be that they are still suffering from an inferiority complex? And why do they carry around such long, sharp, mobile knives to butcher each other? Is it because they hate themselves? And doesn't it seem funny that all other people concentrate on operating banks, railroads, textile mills, steamship lines, airlines, trucking lines, and packing houses, katha wakatha, but they concentrate on operating churches? And why do they buy so many expensive cars and live in such dinky little coupes? Wouldn't it be better if they would invest money spent on cars in homes and businesses? No, that would be too much of a display of intelligence. And why are they always begging for jobs, good jobs, more jobs, and never bother to create businesses that make such jobs possible? Because they are flunkies at heart. And why do they keep griping and shouting about prejudice and Jim Crow? Everybody knows that they are the greatest enemy of their own opportunity. They have refused to buy black. And how is it that New York is supposed to be so cosmopolitan, but we don't see them operating businesses in other communities? Nevertheless, all species of men can be found in their community operating in control of the business and naturally carting the money out of the community. A fool and his money must part. They must have an awfully queer set taste for entertainment to sit down in a movie and see a white man and white women enact a fantastic plot that invariably connotes the essence of white supremacy. They actually laugh and applaud when their race is held up to ridicule. Are they really human? And how could they reject a doctrine such as Garveyism with all its appeal to reason, antidotes for their miserable plight, and inspiration to racial pride, majesty, and manhood, holding out to them the pomp and dignity of nationhood, world respect, and racial security? Through the instrumentality of black nationalism, Africa could be free today. Think of it, a powerful, martial black government in Africa controlled from Cape to Cairo by nationalist black militarists with African ships sailing the seven seas, Africans building a universal commercial empire, African generals and ministers acting as the watchdogs of that empire, with black armies and navies defending the empire. Ah, but the poor devils had a porter's mentality, and they scorned the doctrine of real freedom, Garveyism, for the bastard doctrine of miscegenation and the perverted Bolshevik communist promise of social equality. That's Carlos A. Cook's, and it's very interesting that he is the protege of Garvey. So he's the between the ideologies of Garvey and Malcolm X, and you could kind of see in what he's saying how much Malcolm X, got from him. I want to look into this a little more deeply, though. There were some things that were said that you like really you have to hone in on, and there'll be a broader understanding, because what I do with this book of power is I bring a broader understanding, and I wanna show you exactly how you can use my literature to facilitate your reading of other literature, even great literature. But before that, you know what time it is. You know what time it is. We're gonna do some music.
Okay, so I know books. All right, so let me tell you about a book. All right, check it. So the goal and objective is to be selective, electing for knowledge with the black directive, checking sources, heritage, and legacies, with the brilliance to defeat our nemesis. The book of power, so aptly named, esteemed and famed for informing the brain and doing the same as the ancestors before us. Sankofa, that's the life chorus. Wisdom is the key against dangers. How to change the leaders or lead the changes. We are due in Africa with no strangers. Do you hear us? Okay, hold on. We can't continue to beat the second fiddle. African power is the end of this riddle. Let's build a nation, the likes which never existed. The motto heretofore, we persisted. Better, we resisted. Best, we building. We'll raise the roof and break through the ceiling, peeling away the change we were given to stop just surviving, start thriving and living. Africa's about to host superpowers. China and US back up in time's hours. No one can be free without freeing themselves. But freedom is shown and owned on bookshelves. The book of power, a key for liberation. There's no domination where there's education, because ignorance is man's main weakness. All are exploited if we don't teach this. Then the pages of sages, kings and queens, Akampong, Delaney, Dessalines, Nyerere, Garvey and Zinga and Cooks. 500 pages surpassing most books. The task is told to bring up a continent. You will hold the tone for the confident. Have some pride and push forward your chest. Your leaders are reading one of the best. The book has science, covers violence, self-reliance, and does away with silence. The time has come for the work to get done and build up a land that was second to none. We'll organize, technologize, strategize a new Africa before our eyes, and blackness will be the complexion we see anytime we envision what it means to be free. So come join minds, read what is written. Here be solutions, no longer hidden. Nothing works in theory, all that works and works. So it's time to put ourselves first. Change the leaders and lead the changes. Tell your friends, family, and neighbors. Change the leaders and lead the changes. Tell your friends, family, and neighbors. Change the leaders and lead the changes. Tell your friends, family, and neighbors. Change the leaders and lead the changes. Book of Power. So the Book of Power can be purchased on Amazon.
Yeah.
Just click on the link below.
Click that link below.
Alright, send me a tap. Tulende ma'at, tushinde is fat. Tulende ma'at, tushinde is fat.
Okay.
Tulende ma'at, tushinde is fat.
HTP. Alright. Okay, family. So yeah, like I was saying before the break, which was wonderful, wasn't it? What you have to analyze this, because essentially, I'm going to be honest with you. So here's one of the troubles. I know there's certain people who would swear by this guy, Carlos A. Close, and that's fine. And I don't necessarily blame someone for doing that. But I think, even though I digitized this book, I would say, if you want to understand nationalism, this is not going to be the perfect resource. And I'll give you a couple examples. So one thing you should probably immediately take off on is that this is probably, this is a little relevant to the nationalist issue, but you could say this is a little bit on the negative side, but again, you have to also understand what time this was. Also, you have to understand who Carl J. Cooks was. So I want you to actually get this too, that one of the first beauty contests for black people was promoted by Carlos A. Cooks, in America, as well as particularly like natural beauty. And another thing to note about Carlos A. Cooks, I want to give you, is that he was kind of really heavy on the Buy Black campaign. Now, the Buy Black campaign is the questionable effort, in so much as, like, if you're really truly talking about nationalism, whether Buy Black is a solution or not, and it really isn't, and that's something that you would only get from a deeper understanding of nationalism. This stuff right here, whether they be Malay, Caucasian, accept their hair color, except you guess who. Yeah, and so this is something that we have to understand. I want you to actually understand things deeper than, on the superficial level. On the superficial level, yes, black people do not like their hair. But the reality is this. I actually had the misfortune of knowing a Chinese. I had the misfortune of knowing a Chinese woman. And she actually didn't like her hair either, or her she was pretty pale, but she wanted to be paler, as well as she also, like, she really liked white people's hair, and the thing is that if you actually get to know these quote unquote Orientals, if you will, or these Asians, they also have this white imitation emulation, and a part of it is that white people have one of the most massive media empires on the planet, or not just one of them, but like most of the most massive media empires on the planet. And if you understand the psychology of people, you understand that they tend to gravitate toward the images of the world, particularly the images of beauty and the images of success in this world. So it's looking at people not accepting their hair or their color is the same as looking at people not accepting not having a phone in their pocket, not having clothes that isn't tattered up. It's you want to be successful, and unfortunately, when success looks like whiteness, it would mean that people would also attempt to look like whiteness. And actually, interestingly, I know in the song just now, "Change the Leaders or Lead the Changes," I do mention. Let me see if I can find it. I said, "We'll organize, technologize, strategize a new Africa before our eyes, and blackness will be the complexion we see anytime we envision what it means to be free." So, what I'm saying is that, what you would capture inside of that lyric, or in that little couplet, if you will, or quartet, or whatever you want to call it, is that before there's a new Africa, blackness, the complexion you see when you envision what it means to be free is probably not blackness. You understand? Why would somebody envision blackness as freedom if blackness is so much associated with slavery and nothing after? So yes, you would want to develop a nation, a black nation, in order to disassociate that sort of negative imagery. And again, like I said, even in those regards, you have to really truly advocate and propagate that kind of positive imagery, or it will not be a reality. It'll not be a reality. So it's almost like it's an observation. But if you really want to break it down, if you really want to break it down, you have to promote the creation and the maintenance of a black super state, which to Carlos A. Cook's credit, he does. But it's like you're comparing two different things. The solution is there. Like you're naming a problem, but the solution, like it's not a real problem if you're truly advocating for the solution. Okay, let's see. Everybody that Arab believes in their own and sees in the likeness of their race. Yeah. So and this is actually another interesting thing. Oh, actually, it's pretty interesting. So the Chinese, I think that's a really interesting thing. The Chinese actually have a Chinese Jesus, which is pretty interesting. Black people do not so much. They like some black people would propose a black Jesus, if you will. Now, I wouldn't even use a Jesus. Like Garvey would promote a black Jesus. I wouldn't even use these religious iconography I think it's pretty stupid to try to be a Christian. Uh, but and again, like here's another thing too. Like this is very American centered, you know, or even like diaspora centered, because the reality is that people in Africa like really actually do have their own, you know, like have their own like pantheon, you know, in which our like they engage ancestral worship, or they engage, you know, let's say the Abba song and the Orisha, and of course these are African people. So it's you're looking at a colonized people, and you're looking at the effects and impacts of not creating their own media. So these two are not, and not just that. It's not just not creating your own media, but also not having your own economy. Basically, not having your own nation. Because again, you know, if you're looking for employment from white people, and white people are the ones employing everybody, right? Then you have to go by what their preference is. And if their preference isn't dark skin, or their preference is white women and white men, you know, white people, right? Then you have to then yes, you know, you have a better chance looking like a white person, you know, and having the iconography of a white person. It's almost like it's these are economic pressures, you know, and the thing is that it like you would expect Carl Say Cooks to understand this, because, you know, he comes from, I guess, the Dominican Republic, you know, to America, and that's like a lot of people migrate physically, or like a lot of black people, like for instance, he's in New York, and in Harlem, and Harlem is the effect of a lot of black people migrating towards what would be a better economic opportunity than they would have in the South, you know. So it's like, yes, you can physically migrate, but you can also mentally migrate. But I mean, again, I'm not even getting into the nationalism part yet. It's really more like a you know, I mean, I want to get into the nationalism part, so maybe I could just skip over this. But nah, you wanna look at things more deeply so that you can analyze and really. I want us to, because this is the point of the Book of Powers, to make you really grasp what's going on. You know, a lot of people would downplay what kind of impact, you know, let's say a 21st century intellect, you know, intellectual, if you will, can have on like what is the good of a 21st century literature. And I'm trying to show you exactly what it is. The fact that when you look at 20th century literature, you know, even from the best, like there are a lot has happened, a lot of new research, and not just that, a lot of new research, but also, you know, there are things that we can add, and there are things that we can do in order that we can also hone and really make our message that much more brilliant. Because again, you know, this doesn't even process for a lot of people, you know. And process, I mean, it would mean nothing to somebody truly religious. Somebody truly religious would say, "Oh, so what?" You get what I'm saying? Like, so what? A lot of this is so what? Oh, they changed their hair and they changed their color. Okay, so what? Because the reality is that the Hindu changed their color too. You know what I mean? The Chinese, they changed their color too. They try to be paler as well. And the Caucasian, they tan. They try to be darker. You understand? The Caucasian also changes their hair. Some women would not want to be blonde for whatever reason. You know, so it's not even true. It's not even true. So really, I'm saying in a real sense, if you were engaging with somebody, they would say, some people will, a lot of us, I would take this and I would understand what's being said. Okay? I would understand what's being said, but I understand that there's also people who would say this is nonsense, because it is. A lot of what passes for conscious material, unfortunately, has been imaginary, nonsensical, and all that. You know, and of course it's still a great reading, and it's excellent as a historical document. You know, it's excellent as a historical document, but if you're really truly about building powerful nations in Africa, right? Then no, I would say this is more of a historical relic. But the Book of Power is really what you want, you know. And I say this more because, you know, I tell you, I do have to deal with, you know, psychopaths. I told you about it already, you know, psychopaths who insist that, hey man, you know, you're nothing, you know. Well, they would say something ridiculous like, hey Oni, you're nothing compared to anybody. And it's like, no, you have to understand that the 21st century thinkers are, you know, can contribute much. Or at least they can put us in a direction that won't necessarily be so easily dismissed. And as well, you know, like at the end of the day, the true object is nation building. But let's go. And why is this always white man to court to compel whites to accept them? Okay, so could it be that they are still suffering from an inferiority complex? So this is something we have to understand. So in a nation, you would bring a white man to court. Like in a nation, you would bring somebody to the courtroom. You know, and this is what I'm saying. If you want to understand nationalism, you have to understand that you are not, like Marcus Garvey said it pretty clearly. This is the white man's country. So if you're in, so I'm guessing this is, you know, Carlson Cooks is analyzing America. If you're in America, you would bring the white man to his courtroom, of course. Because I don't understand what else you would expect, in the sense that if you're in the middle of Rwanda, you would bring a white person would bring you to the Rwandan court. You understand? And sure, you could in your imagination say, no, the white man would do better and he would just attack me in the streets. Not exactly. If Rwanda is a functional, or whatever country, if whatever African country you're in, if it's a functional government, then no, it does not. Then it has in place a lot of impediments towards you attacking somebody in the streets. You understand? So truly, if you're promoting nationalism, and this is why Garvey, this is why I say Garvey really sets the bar. You know, and why we just had the course on African philosophy. If you didn't catch the course on African philosophy, go back and catch it. But Garvey sets the bar in the sense of he wants you to understand, look, you're in the white man's nation. So yes, in a sense, complaining that people go to the white man's court doesn't actually make any sense. Because truly someone would ask you, okay, so what should they do? And you might say, oh, well, they should, you know, well, actually, you might even say this one. Why do they carry around such long, sharp knives to butcher each other? It's because they hate themselves. And it's exactly like contradiction. It's a contradiction here. You would carry around long knives if you weren't going to court. You know? But the thing is that the white man is protecting himself from your long knives. But the black man isn't. The black man is not organized to protect himself from your long knives. Or the white man is not organized to protect the white man from your long knives. So it's almost like a contradiction right afterward. Is it hate? Or it's more like the courts are insufficient. But this is more of a repatriation claim. You know, and that's one of the troubles. This is one of the things I would point out in Carlos A. Cook's literature, is that he did not repatriate. You know, even though he had the opportunity. Garvey was on his way. You know what I'm saying? I was on my way until COVID. You know what I'm saying? I was on my way till COVID. But this is one of the issues with American-centered black nationalism, and I kind of brought this up in regards to my other post on Malcolm X, Neely Fuller Jr., and Amos Wilson. Like this idea that American-centered nationalism has you're trying to propose a solution in America, but it doesn't make any sense in the national paradigm. In the national paradigm, you have white people who have a court system, have a criminal justice system, and then you have black people who don't, because it's not their nation. You know, so if you're in an African nation that's hostile toward white people, maybe white people will not find justice in the criminal justice system. However, black people would. And so, but asking why white people would participate in the criminal justice system if the nation were hostile to them is missing the point of, well, it's a freaking nation and you can't really do anything about it. He says, it doesn't seem funny that all the people operate banks, so on and so forth, but they concentrate on operating churches. Now, again, this is a whole other. This is misunderstanding nationalism in the sense of. All right. Well, first off, you would need banks to operate all the rest of these, more or less. Either banks, or you would need generational wealth, but you also particularly need the permission of the nation in question. You understand? So I'll give you an example. There's this the sister was talking about how she's in a certain African nation, and you have to be a citizen to purchase land in that nation. So in order to get land, you would have to like hook up with one of the citizens and say, hey, I want to purchase this land. I'll give you a cut. Like the reality is that if you understand nations, you understand why black people do not have these things. Black people are like everything is allowance. Everything is allowance. The bank is allowance. The railroad is allowance. The textile mill is allowance. You aren't allowed to operate these things. That's why you don't. You're allowed to operate a church. So it's not really funny. It's just a matter of straightforward nationalism. And this is why I say you have to understand nations. Because if you don't understand nations, you're just going to find something funny. And I'm not going to say, and that's the thing. You might be like, well, are you saying Carlton Cooks didn't understand? I mean, look. A lot of our people do not understand nationalism. That's why I am teaching it. This is why I wrote a book. If people understood nationalism, I would not be writing a book. I would just say, hey, look at this book. This is where you would understand nationalism. This is not an understanding of nationalism. Why do they buy such expensive cars and live in such dinky little coupes? Again, it's like allowances. Wouldn't it be better if they invest money spent on cars and homes and businesses? Yeah, sure. No, they would be too much for a display of intelligence. Now, wouldn't it be better if they spent? Yeah, okay, sure. And again, this is the thing that we don't understand. So one of the things with Du Bois writes this book, and it's called Souls of Black Folk. And he explains to us why black folk do not save money in America. It's one of the most interesting it's one of the most interesting things you could read. And this is why I tend to read as much, I try to read as much as I can. I mean, I've kind of slowed down over the last few years. I'm a baba. Can't really just, sit down and read all the time. But one of the things I read when I was, younger and more, able to go get about was the Souls of Black Folk. And in Souls of Black Folk, it's said, hold on a second, let me just make sure I could, yeah. The Souls of Black Folk, what he says is that black people used to put all their money into a certain, freedom savings bank or something like that, right? And then eventually, the bank just lost all its money. It just said, nope, we're gone, we're done. And black people lost all of their wealth. And ever since then, they just haven't been saving money. And I bring this up because, every time you go into black circles, sometimes I just go into even, black liberal circles. I would just sit there at their meetings, and they'd be like, yeah, black people, we don't know how to save money. We don't know that. But it's Du Bois already told us. If you do not... the banks could up and take your money. And you might say, well, why don't we just go to our own banks? Because you really don't have any. And even if you did, the reality is that even that bank can just go under. You don't understand banking if you think that just banking would be a solution. You don't understand homes and businesses. All of this can go. This expensive car can go too. The expensive car can go too, but again, this is what is an image of success. You have to realize that most people kind of just want to have sex. You understand? A car helps you have sex. I don't even, it's not even that complicated. Dinky little coupe. Sure, the coupe might not really be helpful toward having sex. It's cheaper than a car. I'm guessing. I don't know. But yeah, expensive car helps you have sex. It's not even yeah. It's like somebody was saying that the first thing a woman sees on a man is his shoes. If you have raggedy shoes, they're not interested in you. But yeah, a man coming in with a expensive car, or even a woman coming in with an expensive car, it denotes, hey, this person has value. Notwithstanding that they have this little coupe. But of course, you're not even like if you're outside, nobody really sees the coop. It's kind of, I don't know, but it's just basically, yeah, people want to have sex. I don't. Even my greatest critic is like, well, not greatest, but even my most active critic is like some dude who would like cheat on his woman, anytime, any opportunity he gets. So yeah, like people have sex, and of course his woman will do stuff like that. Brag about her sexual escapades and so forth. But that's neither here nor there. All right, and why are they always begging for jobs, good jobs, more jobs, and never bother to create businesses that make such jobs possible? Because they are flunkies at heart. Now, again, like the nation, you have to understand. Like it's like when I say allowance, think of the word license. If you're trying to do a business, what do you need? You need a business license. So it's like you're in a hostile nation. The reality is that you're in a hostile nation. So the best thing you could do, if you have these ambitions, is to leave. And why do they keep griping and shouting about prejudice and Jim Crow? Because it was horrible. It's like Jim Crow was horrible. Segregation was horrible. It was very undignified, and no one wanted to go through that. This was something that Malcolm X was like the difference between Malcolm X and the people in the South. Now, if you're in the North, Jim Crow doesn't seem that bad for some reason. But if you're in the South, where your people are being captured and lynched for doing businesses, when your people are beaten in the street for like walking on the same side, where you're relegated to sitting in the back, where you're relegated to walking miles away to drink some water, or it's not a system that you wanted to upkeep. So the idea of people would like, you're griping and shouting because it was horrible. And this is where I would say, look, this is one of the bigger issues. So everyone knows the greatest enemy of his own opportunity. They have refused to buy black. Buy black is not a real solution. It's not a real solution, because you cannot buy black truly in a white nation. Part of buying has to deal with importing and exporting. The reality is that if you do not control the ports, if you do not control the tradeways, then it's like it's almost a moot point. Now it's different in the sense of what Garvey was doing. What Garvey was doing was he had the Black Star Line where you could literally ship your own things. But if you're not shipping your own things, what you come across is black folk are practicing what's known as retail, and retail is essentially like it's essentially making black people the middle person for buying white. Like you really don't buy black without control of the ports, which basically means that in a white nation, like buy black is not a real solution. It's nice. It's a nice gesture. It's kind, but it's not like really truly. If you want to build a nation abroad, and by build a nation abroad, I mean, sorry, you want to build a nation at home. You want to build a nation on the continent, and the only thing that you could do, which obviously Carlos couldn't do at the time, but you could, is you can get this book of power, read it, digest it, and then let's work together toward real solutions. Because unfortunately, you might just say, oh, well, look, these are solutions over here. These are solutions over here. I'm an intellect. Like I said, I have a critic who's like, I'm an intellect because I read this book, and it's like, no, this is not enough. These are not solutions. These are not real questions. These are not real concerns. A person buys an expensive car. Okay, like not everybody could host businesses. And again, you are being redlined. You are being impeded by the nation itself. So it's almost like, okay, why don't you just fail at 1 million businesses? No, I would rather not fail at 1 million businesses. I'd rather just spend whatever money I have on an expensive car and get laid. And that's the thing. A lot of people just want to get laid. Again, like I said, I have a critic who's like some sort of pervert, as well as his whatever. I know you don't want to hear that, but apparently my critic My critic does. All right. So how is that New York is supposed to be cosmopolitan, but we don't see them operating businesses in other communities? Nevertheless, all species of men can be found. Oh, I don't want to reread it. A fool and his money must part. Okay. To sit down. Yeah. So they watch these movies. They watch these movies with fantastic plots. One of the things that you have to realize, they actually laugh and applaud when the race is being held up to ridicule. Are they really human? So I mean, this is a little extreme, obviously. I mean, I get it. It's just a little extreme. It's just a little extreme. Not extreme. I mean, I personally, like, I see. It is silly. It is silly. I'm not going to disagree with that. Here's the real meat and potatoes, though. I like this part, obviously. So he says, how could they reject? Now this is where you explain what Garveyism is. Antidotes for their miserable plight. Inspiration to racial pride, majesty, pomp, and dignity of nationhood, world respect, and racial security. To the instrumentality of black nationalism, Africa could be free today. So this is the true part. Powerful martial black government in Africa, control from Cape to Cairo. This is, I don't know if you're going to get it that large, but you could try nationalism with African ships sailing sea, African building a universal commercial empire, African generals and ministers. So this is a really wonderful image, right? Wonderful vision. Have a Porter's mentality, and they scorn the doctrine of real freedom, Garveyism for the bastard doctrine of miscegenation, and perverted Bolshevik communists. So this is like, I appreciate this from a historical lens. You know, he doesn't like miscegenation, which is excellent. He doesn't like Bolsheviks, which is excellent. But that's and this is the manhood, the martial black government. So this is where the good is, you know. But again, it would be inconsistent with, you know, the buy black or even any of these rhetorical questions, because all of these have to deal with the fact that people are displaced from their national government. So what you want to do is you want to understand what nationalism is. So this is more nationalism. This is more kind of just like I don't even know what this is, to be honest. Like, this is more like a misunderstanding of nationalism. Like, nationalism is not, you know, whining about black folk and what they do. Black folk are a displaced, like that they do in America. What they do in America is that they are displaced and they have absolutely no solution. But let's say they still want to have sex and they still want to eat food. You understand? If you have a job, you can eat. Like I said, I have like the critic that I have, for instance. Like, there's a critic who likes this Carlos A. Cook's character, doesn't have a job, is kind of a pervert though, right? And this is what. Like, yeah, if you don't care for, like, working for yourself, then sure, this is appealing. Like, if you don't care about working, if you don't care about that kind of stuff, then yeah, this is appealing. But it's not really, like, it's good on paper, but it's not real nationalism. The reality is that if a people are displaced and they're in a hostile nation, what they should do is they should move. That's really all that needs to be said. Critiquing a people for showing the symptoms of their displacement isn't really productive. And that's what it really comes down to, like how productive you are. Now, Carlos A. Cooks, for his credit, was very productive. But he should have been productive in Africa. And that's really what I'm telling our people, that you want to be productive, because only then would you understand nationalism, I feel. Well, that, or, you know, reading the book, but and by understand nationalism, I mean you have to engage with a nation, and Carlos A. Cooks did actually engage in with the American nation. So I don't really know why he would speak like this in that sense, but this is what we have to take away. The idea is that, you know, all of this is kind of explained by just being a socially displaced people. You know, you're begging for jobs because you need a job in order to eat. You're not creating businesses because the nation does not give you business licenses. Okay? You don't like Jim Crow because it involves you being lynched for owning businesses. You know what I mean? Like, and buy black would not be a solution. So a lot of this is more like, I want you to get this understanding, because the reality is this: you could read this book and be like, wow, that was an excellent book, but you have to see it as a historical relic and not as like a book of solutions. If you want a book of solutions, I got you. Okay? I got you if you want this book. Again, you just join the Discord. You say Oni, I want the Carl State Cooks reader, and I say no problem, fam. That's it. You know what I mean? You could even hit me up on Twitter, at Onitaset, and be like, hey, I want the Carl State Cooks what's it called? Reader. I want the Carl State Cooks reader, and I'll be like, sure, no problem, fam. Right? But if you want solutions and you want to be a part of this last paragraph, building black nationalism, right? Like, if you want the steps for this, because see, these aren't the steps for that. If you want the steps for this, you get the Book of Power. Hit me up, all right? Or just click on the link below. Go to Amazon. Click my name, and then you're gonna read something that is real solutions. But thank you so much, family. Peace and love, and don't worry. I don't worry about all that. The psychopath I be talking about. I'm just doing that because I tell you, psychopaths be like, mental illness is a real thing in the African community, and apparently, like the troll. It's a troll. And sometimes you gotta give the troll what they want. You know what I mean? The troll wants your attention, so you give them a little attention. But yeah, don't worry about that, fam. Like I said, sometimes there's mental illness, and you gotta address that. You gotta address that, because mental illness can be masked in a community, and it's not good. But on the other hand, hey, you got good literature coming from me, so I do my part. Shem Hotep.